Tonight, we're going to go over something that I think was really glossed over during the Dallas game. And the reason why I'm going to go over it is an interesting article and suggestion that came out from PFF that will tie to that. And we'll dive deeper into if tight end is the next progression for this offense that I believe your boy was saying all year. Also, we are going to talk about the hiring of Joe Barry as the next linebacker coach in Miami. Anthony Campanile, he is gone. We got a lot to cover. We got a lot to talk about. We'll even hear what Trent Dilfer has to say on Tua's contract situation. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. As always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's going to open a touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Appreciate all y'all coming through tonight. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Tuesday. And listen, remember, I'm going to be live tomorrow with Richmond and Ballgame. We'll finally get to hear Ballgame's thoughts on all this defensive coordinator jazz going on, as well as the staff being put together. We'll give him the opportunity to speak his mind. We got a couple other things we're going to talk about. Then I'll be live on Thursday with Neil Driscoll for Fin Too Deep. Don't forget, I'll be live for the Super Bowl, live reacting to it. So if y'all want to come by and come out and watch that, I'll be here for all of y'all. So, listen, do me the favor first, smash the like button. I got to just continue off this Fields thing yesterday because it was just ridiculous. The fact that people are even making this a story when it's a non-story, because if you look at where the Fields stuff started, it started from one of those NFL notifications accounts on Twitter that get called out by the legitimate media for not being real. From Ben Albright all the way to guys like Adam Schefter and Tom Pelissero call these things out for not being real. So, it's just the fact that people, listen, I keep trying to tell y'all, and you see it through the offseason, right? That's why, the draft and free agency, it pops on Phinside The NFL. These people can't tell you anything insightful about your favorite football team. All they can do is talk about Tua in the quarterback position. That's it. You're about to hear that on other platforms. We're on February 6th, and you're about to hear this all the way until next season. While you got other people who are responsible, informative, and insightful to the fan base that they don't need to, I'll give you a perfect example. And I'll drop names. Did you see me or Dougley making videos about Tyreek Hill's divorce issue? We are not Sally, Jesse, Raphael over here. All right? Because the same people who were talking all about that were the same people that were fear-mongering all of you over the Tyreek Hill Marina stuff. Remember? Oh, he's picking on an old... They made you look like he was going to jail and that he attacked an old fragile man while you come over to Finside The NFL. What was I saying? We ain't even seen what this guy looks like. We don't know if he's bigger or smaller than Tyreek. We have no idea. Video comes out, the guy's taller than Tyreek. The guy's bigger than Tyreek. Not like Jack Rip, but he's bigger. He's wider and he's taller. Right? But they made you fit. You listen to these other people, you'd think that he's picking on some 80-year-old dude who's not even using a cane, who's rolling around in a scooter. And it's the same people that are talking about the divorce. It's just drama, negative, clickbait. And these people claim well, we know some of them are Cowboys fans and not real Dolphin fans, but some of these people claim to be Dolphin fans, but all they want to do is bring you down to their negative level. And they want to put on Maury Povich, talking about divorces and fights and stuff like that. You know, it's some next level, man. Sorry, I don't get down with that. I don't get down with that Sally Jesse Raphael stuff here, man. I don't. So I just tell people how it is, and I got no problem telling them how it is. So, but tonight we're gonna have some real conversation for you because listen, I think there was something that was glossed over way too much, and it's a tight end position. And I talked about every time I have Omar Kelly out here, I remind him, right? We saw through the end of the season, Durham Smythe became the third leading receiver for the Miami Dolphins. And I say this all the time. I don't want to hear anything about targets because Tua threw the ball almost 600 times, about 580 times, and about what? 285 of those targets were to Tyreek and Waddle. That's 300 targets to go around. There's targets for a tight end in this offense, so we're going to talk about that because, listen, I'm not letting this one go. I am not letting this one go. Well, I think you can also tell the difference between people who have actually been fans and been through it with all of y'all through the mud and those people who are trying to hop on and just profiteer off of you guys. Like, there's plenty of people out here with platforms. You can tell they weren't around for the Marino days. Hell, there's people out here trying to start platforms. They weren't even around for the Flores regime. But they're trying to tell you what the deal is with your favorite football team that some of y'all have been fans for 20, 30, 15 years. They ain't even been around. They weren't even with you through the mud during the Flores era. But they're trying to tell you how to fan. And they're trying to tell you and it's clear. You listen to these people for 5 minutes. You know, you got people out here claiming they played college ball when if you look into their background, they went to university 6 years after they graduated from high school. So the math ain't mathin'. So, you know, you got people out here like willingly lying to you guys that aren't even true Dolphin fans that just want to profiteer off you guys. And I'm not about that. I've never been about that. I've been with it through the mud back to the Marino. Yeah. I sat with my dad and I watched those losses to Jim Kelly. Sat with my dad and I watched the loss to Stojanovic. Sat with my stepdad. I watched Marino lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sat by myself through the 2000s and watched us waste Ricky and be an actual quarterback away. What's funny is fans who were actually around when Ricky was around, you don't even have to go far back. Fans that were around when Ricky around, they know. They look deep inside themselves and they say to themselves what I'll say to you right now. If we had Tua, we would have won a goddamn Super Bowl. If we had Tua during the Ricky Williams era with Chris Chambers and McMichael and that defense and that offensive line, you're damn right we would have won a Super Bowl with Tua Tagovailoa. Because what would we say back then? If you were a real fan who was through the Marino era, what would you say back then? You would say, God, Marino missed this era by like 3 or 4 years. He missed this window. I remember saying to myself, I wasn't even 20 yet. And I remember saying that to myself. Dan Marino's the reason why my number in football was 13. My number in hockey was 13. Listen, Mario Lemieux and Dan Marino are my two biggest idols growing up. But Dan was the man. That's why when my grandfather died, I tell this story tons of times. You know, I was a rep baseball player. Baseball was my sport. My grandfather died. He had never missed a single game. And I converted. And I basically put my glove down and I picked up football instead. Because football, I'd been watching it since I was a kid. Blah, 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 blah. Since a baby, I should say. Not a kid, because I started playing football when I was a kid. But when I was a baby. So, you know, that was that. So, listen, football and the Dolphins, you know, one of my first baby pictures is my dad holding me and he's in his Dan Marino jersey. You know, this Dolphin shit is in my blood, just like the Penguins are in my blood. So, you know, I don't get down with these people who haven't been they haven't been through the mud with us. But they're trying to tell you how to fan it. And you can listen to these people for 5 minutes. Not only did they not play, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. So, right? You had people out here just, you got people out here trying to, and it comes back to the Fields thing, right? People are going to try and say, well, the scheme around him, they're going to try and blame the offensive coordinator. Brother, he's running an iteration of the Shanahan offense. That's what we're running. We are running an iteration of that offense in Miami. He put out some of the ugliest professional quarterback tape over the last 2 years in that style of offense. You want to go to that? So you can't blame the scheme because he's going to be running an iteration of it. And will make Mike McDaniel retool and reshift if you got a quarterback like that? Sure. But I go back to the Redskins. RG3. They had to run an option RPO offense. McDaniel and those guys have talked about it. They had never ran it before. So they found a success with him. He got hurt, right? But what happened? When he got hurt, what did they go back to? Their bread and butter. And who got elevated off their bread and butter? Kirk Cousins. Why? Because he did the things and he had the intangible requirements you need to operate this offense. So do I want to revert to an option RPO offense that's not even what Mike McDaniel wants to do, let alone out of his wheelhouse, away from his bread and butter? No. I have no interest in that. So that's number one, the scheme. Then they'll try to tell you he has no weapons. They'll try to tell you he has no talent around him. Okay. Are you sure about that? Go look at how good Deontay Foreman was running, right? They drafted Bijan's partner, Roschon Johnson, into the backfield. Now that's just talking about the backfield. Let's go out of it. Am I the only one who remembers the Chicago Bears giving up all that capital for DJ Moore to get him a number one receiver? Am I the only one who remembers that? DJ Moore, number one receiver. Am I the only one who remembers that? I'll go even further. Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end. DJ Moore put up over 1,300 yards this year. Cole Kmet put up like 800 yards this year. I believe Cole Kmet was either 9th or 10th in receiving. Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end in the NFL right now. That's why they signed him to that extension. So, this whole narrative that it's a scheme or that it's weapons, no. They've given him weapons. I'll go even further. I brought this up yesterday. The Miami Dolphins were 31st in pass rush win rate for their offensive line. That's not PFF. That's ESPN. All right? The Bears were top 5 in pass rush win rate last year. I believe they were number 3. So he's even got a better line. You go watch the Fields tape. This guy's got a pocket for that pocket y'all guys were seeing that Lamar had against us, right? The pocket you were seeing that Mahomes had against us. Fields had that for the majority of the season. And he still couldn't read defense. He still would stare down open guys and look off them. No. Stop. Don't let these people try to pull the wool over your eyes. Educate yourself so you can't be fooled. They think y'all are naive. They look down on y'all. They think y'all are dumb. Show them you ain't dumb. You see right through the bullshit. So, yeah. Don't get me started on Jay Fiedler. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I tell you. He was Jay Fiedler, man. He was decent. It's a problem with Jay Fiedler. See, again, these people they want to complain about Tua not winning the big one. Jay Fiedler would throw interceptions at the worst time consistently. Oh. If you want to see something funny, go look at John Beck's first 4 games as a Miami Dolphin, and then go look at Josh Rosen's first 4 games as Miami Dolphin, like game started, they're like identical. They're both like 1-3, and the numbers are just so in the trash. Listen, I drank the John Beck Kool-Aid when he was coming out. I was like, okay, he's mature, blah, 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 blah. He's done his retreat. Okay, let's get something here. And he just was not the dude. Man, I've been through the Hennies, right? Henny with the big arm. When I saw Henny overthrow Ted Ginn, I said, is this real life? I said, is this real life? I never thought someone could outthrow Ted Ginn, and then I saw Chad Henne. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, hey, Chad Henne ended up winning a Super Bowl as a backup in KC, so who am I? Oh, brother. Fiedler, he did, man. Those years, brother, I'm telling you, back in the day, when they didn't have good antennas and satellites, you put Jay Fiedler on the top of your TV, and those years are destined to pick up something on the, you're picking up at least HBO on those things. He was terrible. Oh, he wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't good. You know what I mean? He wasn't. You want to talk about not good enough? That was Jay Fiedler. Okay? Jay Fiedler never sniffed. That's what. Well, Jay Fiedler, playoffs. Did he ever lead the league in passing? You think Henne could overthrow Reek? Possible. I mean, prime Chad Henne, like when he was young with us. Sure, when his arm was like fresh, maybe. That guy had a freaking cannon. Oh, buddy. Oh, my God. No, do you remember how mad? See, that's again. Like, go back to this. Go back to these guys. These people, again, they weren't fans. None of these people were fans when even Mike Wallace was here, I'll say. They weren't fans. They might have been casual, but they weren't fans. They don't remember Tannehill overthrowing Mike Wallace and Mike Wallace losing his mind regularly with Ryan Tannehill. If you saw Tannehill and Wallace, you damn sure appreciate Tyreek and Tua. You damn sure. Mike Wallace was the first 11 before Devontae Parker. I have a Mike Wallace jersey upstairs when we got him from Pittsburgh. If you watched Mike Wallace and Ryan Tannehill and you do not appreciate Tyreek and Tua, we gotta have a conversation. That was a disaster. Now, I always give Tannehill his props because I've talked about this multiple times. I give Tannehill his props. He did get better Mike Wallace made Tannehill realize he needed to become a better deep ball passer, and he did work on it. It took him a couple years, but he did work on it. I will give him that. But holy jeez, if you were a true Dolphin fan and you remember Tannehill and Wallace, and you do not appreciate Tua to Tyreek, I got no words for you. Because that's a perfect example of a high caliber wide receiver held back by his quarterback. And while Tyreek's doing things he never did with Mahomes. So you can't say it's all Tyreek. I'm just saying. Like, I remember, like, those great, like, the member bears, I remember, all right? Like, I remember vividly. Real Dolphin fans remember vividly Mike Wallace and Ryan Tannehill, and those same fans appreciate Tua to Tyreek. Let me tell you that much, okay? That was, how many times I almost Bud Dwyer'd myself because Tannehill couldn't get it right with Mike Wallace. Oh, my God. Oh, you want to talk about wasting talent? We're not even wasting Tyreek. Tyreek's out here putting up 1,800 yards. Guys put up almost 3,500 yards over 2 seasons. We ain't wasting Tyreek. The problem is once you get past Tyreek, Waddle was hurt all year. And we got no one that... See, here's the thing. We don't even have anyone that's like a sliver dynamic. Was Berrios dynamic at all this year? Was Cedric Wilson dynamic at all? They were so undynamic that we went to Mr. Let's call it what it is. Mr. Does his job. That's it. As boring as it sounds, we went to Mr. lunch pail Durham Smythe instead down the stretch in those meaningful games. Because that's how undynamic Berrios and Cedric Wilson and anyone else you could name beyond the top two were. Don't even offer you anything. Don't even offer you a handshake after they screw up. So, I'm just saying. Oh, Matt Farms, member berries taste like disappointment. Brother, I had to post this up because your last name is Farms. Berries grow on farms. It just made sense. But you're right. Oh, boy. I remember, okay? You can't tell me I remember that stuff. Oh my God, I remember that too. Oh. And they'll tell you Fiedler won a playoff game. That's what they'll tell you. Oh, Fiedler won a playoff game too, hasn't? Oh my God. Yes, I remember Joey Harrington. I have my Joey Harrington story that I always love to tell is when I skipped because out here, right, in Canada, Thanksgiving is October. So Thanksgiving is obviously November for you guys. So I remember me and my buddy, we skipped school on American Thanksgiving and we went back to his house and, did our vices or whatever. And then we sat down, made a bunch of food, sat down. And I remember watching Joey Harrington versus the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, man. And I remember sitting there and watching that and being like, oh my God, are we going to revitalize Joey Harrington's career? And it ended up being no, he was revitalized for one night against the team that drafted him. And then I was right after that, okay? I do not disagree with you at all, BX. I think Hunter Henry would get back to what he was a little bit. Who was Gus Frerotte was probably our best quarterback. You know who I tell this story too? The guy who I was actually hyped for, but he was just a concussion mess. Who was, I think, the most talented, like the guy we brought in who I think had was most talented other than Pennington, obviously, I think was Trent Green. But he was so messed up from the concussions, we never saw what Trent Green could have been. But I do think Trent Green, when you talk about playing the quarterback position up until that point, when you saw what he did in St. Louis, et cetera, before Warner took his job, Trent Green was probably the best quarterback we had brought in here. But the problem is he was just a mess, right? He was all messed up. The concussions were just way too much at that point in his career. But I remember that vividly. Yeah, Pat White. Pat White was brutal. Let's go get Justin Fields, the better version of Pat White, huh? I don't think so. Yeah, I remember Cleo. Man, we had so many bad quarterbacks. Wasn't Cleo 17 before Tannehill was? If I remember correctly. Wasn't Cleo Lemon 17 before Tannehill was? I remember Cleo specifically because he wore no wristbands. He wore nothing. He just had clean arms. And I remember, he was bad. He wasn't good. So, yeah, we've been through it. Was he 19? I thought he was 17. Was he 19? Let me look. I thought he was 17. Cleo Lemon. Yeah, he was 17. In Miami, he was 17. So, yeah. Oh, man. I didn't like it at the time. I hated it at the time. I despised it at the time. And yeah, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but SI, like a couple years after that, when what's it called? When a championship was won in when they won a championship in New Orleans, I remember SI, they did like a what if thing, and it hurt me, man. I liked Brees, but like I was a Brees guy before. I was not a huge Culpepper guy. I mean, you could see, you could literally see after he lost, without Moss and Carter, he wasn't going to be what he was. But man, when SI dropped that cover, you remember this? Tell me if anyone remembers that. Who remembers that? I remember being sick to my stomach I remember being sick to my stomach when I saw this. I remember like wanting to just lose my mind when they did the what if. Like, man, that one hurt. This is the only one of the few SI things I ever remember, and I remember how much it hurt to see that. Because I knew we made the wrong choice when we brought in Dante. I was not a Culpepper fan. I was not a Culpepper fan at all. In the slightest. So, anyways, let's get into it. Now, we got a couple things to go over here. We're going to talk about the coordinator position. We are going to talk a little bit about Anthony Weaver. We're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about Joe Barry. We have quite a bit to go over here. So let's start off with the big news of the day for the Miami Dolphins. And that's this. The Miami Dolphins, they are hiring former Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry as their linebackers coach / run game coordinator, right? So, I see people are indifferent about this. I think this is a great hire. I think it's a fantastic hire, if you want me to be real with you. You go look at what he's done. So he was under, if you look at him as a linebackers coach, right? Go back from, 2001 to 2006. The defensive coordinator he was under as a linebackers coach in Tampa Bay was Monte Kiffin. And, you're talking about out of those 6 years he was there, 5 of those years they finished as a top 10 overall defense. 5 of those years they finished top 6 or better against the pass. And then, only 2 of those 5 years were they top 10 against the rush. Now he did come back to Tampa in 2009 under Jim Bates, and they had the 32nd best rush defense, 10th best pass defense, 27th overall. Not good. In LA, under John Pagano, remember the Colts, right? They were the number 16 overall defense, number 11 overall defense, and number 13 overall defense during his 3-year stint there as a linebackers coach. They were 18th against the pass, 29th against the pass, and 4th against the pass. But against the rush, they were 6th, 12th, and 26th. And then he went to Los Angeles, and he was under Wade Phillips, right? And this is where the tie-in, this is why he came over with LaFleur, right? Under Brandon Staley, it was the number 1 overall defense in 2020, number 1 overall pass defense, and number 3 rush defense. But again, under Wade Phillips, they were number 12 overall, number 20 overall, number 17 overall. And then against the pass, they were 13th, 14th, and 12th, and then 28th, 23rd, and 19th from 2017 to 2019. So he's been around the block. Now, as a defensive coordinator in Green Bay, in 2021, they were 9th in yards allowed and 13th in points allowed. In 2022, they were 17th in both categories. And then in 2023, they were 17th in yards allowed and 10th in points allowed. Now, Joe Barry, when you look at his resume and his background, he wasn't just a defensive coordinator over there he wasn't just a defensive coordinator over in Green Bay. He had been a defensive coordinator before in in Washington from 2015 to 2016. And then in Green Bay, obviously 2021 to 2023. And in Detroit from 2007 to 2008. Right? That's where he was before his second stint in Tampa Bay. Now, if you look at him as a defensive coordinator, 7 years total, and his defenses averaged number 20, number 23, number 27, number 23 rankings in points, yards, yards per play, and EPA. And he's been a linebacker coach for about 13 seasons, and those defense averaged 12, 10, number 12, number 10, number 13, and number 10 in points, yards per play, and EPA. I think this is a case of we got a guy who, I've talked about this before, with Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley seemed like he's a better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. Looks like we got a guy who linebackers are his niche. Any way you want to cut this, slice this, linebackers are his niche. Right? I mean, since his college days, when he started out at Northern Arizona, he was a linebackers coach. Then he was a linebackers coach at the University of Las Vegas. Then his first stint with the Bucs from 2001 to 2006, linebackers coach. Then he got a coordinator position in Detroit, didn't work out. Came back to Tampa as a linebackers coach. Then he left Tampa, went to USC as a linebackers coach. Then he came back to the NFL with San Diego Chargers as a linebackers coach. Then he went to Washington as a defensive coordinator, didn't work out. Came to the Los Angeles Rams under Wade Phillips and Staley as a what? Assistant head coach and linebackers coach. Then he followed LaFleur when LaFleur left the Rams and took the job in in Green Bay. That was his defensive coordinator. So he's either been a defensive coordinator or a linebackers coach, other than one stint as like a defensive quality control when he started off in the NFL, pretty much his whole career. I think he was a defensive line coach for a year or two somewhere as well. But we need this linebacker room revamp, people. We do. From the outside to the inside, we need revamp. AVG's a free agent. Jalen Phillips, Cam Good, and Bradley Chubb are all hurting out. Duke Riley is not the answer. Jerome Baker, we don't know what the situation there is when it comes to the cap creation. Are they going to restructure him? Is he going to take a big pay cut, or is he going to be gone? Channing Tindall alone. What can this guy get out of Channing Tindall? That alone has me intrigued. Now, what I will say is this, and I want you to look deep inside yourself and think about this for a minute. I want you to think about this for a minute, okay? I want you to really, really free your mind and think about this. And I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial, but it's coming. Is this a McDaniel or a Weaver hire? Think about it. Is this a Weaver or a McDaniel hire? I'm going to tell you right now, this sniffs of a McDaniel hire. McDaniel met Weaver in 2014, 2015 when they crossed paths in Cleveland, right? Weaver was the defensive line coach. McDaniel was the wide receiver coach under Mike Pettine's tree, right? Joe Barry, he doesn't come from that tree. Joe Barry has never crossed paths in a coaching capacity on the same team with Anthony Weaver. This is something I talked about. Is Weaver going to be allowed to pick his own staff? Now, did Weaver approve it or say, okay, I'm on board with it? Probably. Sure. But this sniffs as a McDaniel, at minimum, suggested this guy. At minimum. Because we know Austin Clark is a holdover. Slowick stays. Slowick's going to be a holdover. What's going to happen with Madison and Ronaldo Hill? I don't know. But McDaniel's had holdovers forced on him, and Fangio has had holdovers forced on him by McDaniel and Greer. So this is nothing crazy that I'm suggesting here, but one of the main questions I had when Anthony Weaver was made the defensive coordinator was, are they going to let him spread his wings and pick his own staff? And I would like, we'll never know. They'll never come out and publicly admit they're meddling or they're not giving him full reign. But this kind of feels like a McDaniel hire. Or a nudge McDaniel, hey, Weaver, approve it. Nah. That's what it feels like. Now, I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm just giving you for food for thought, because this is something I have talked about since we hired Anthony Weaver. Hell, this is something I had talked about before we even hired a defensive coordinator. Were they going to be allowed to pick their own staff? So I'm just saying. I don't know. This is something I've said. What did I say? He was already interviewing for the Falcons and the Commanders job, and he hadn't even had a successful season as a defensive coordinator. That's what I've been saying since we hired him. That's nothing new, Jason. I've been saying that since we hired him. That this could be a different version of Evero. He's already getting looks. He hasn't even had a successful season as a defensive coordinator. What if we have a good defense this year? 110%. This could be a one and done. This is something I've warned since we hired him. Now, would Joe Barry be the next up? I don't know. I do find it interesting, though, that LaFleur, McVay, and McDaniel all passed off over their guy, Brandon Staley. I do find that interesting. But McVay and LaFleur are playing a little, scenery swap game with Joe Barry and the next guy we're about to talk about here. And the next guy I'm about to talk about here is, hey, if we get Joe Barry, what happens to Anthony Campanile? Well, Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley, the Boston College coach that they promoted to DC, they are expected to hire former Dolphins coach Anthony Campanile, a source said. The Giants interviewed Campanile for the DC job, and the Eagles wanted him as a linebackers coach. Rocky, what's your thoughts on Eagles reportedly going after Campanile for brother? I knew he wouldn't have taken it, because him and Fangio, they don't get along. Like, from stuff I've been hearing since back October, Fangio, at least I knew back in October, was not a huge Campanile fan. He didn't want Campanile on this staff. If you talk to people, he wanted to bring over his guys, and he wasn't allowed to. Basically, we decided on Slowick, right? And we also decided on we held over Austin Clark on him, and Campanile was a holdover as well. So, that's just what the deal is on that. So I knew that wouldn't have worked out. I just know that I knew that wouldn't have worked. When I saw that, I'm like, okay, Vic's just I think Vic was trying to stick one to us, basically. And I'm going to talk about this with the boys tomorrow, but I feel like, honestly, I don't think it's as, the parting might have been mutual, but I don't think it's, as open arms, hey, come on back, as people think. Right? I just don't. But I know, Vic wanted to bring in John Pagano, who he had as his outside linebackers coach in Denver. And I know he wanted to bring in Reggie Herring, who was his linebackers coach. Reggie Herring would run his linebackers and John Pagano would run his outside linebackers. I know that's who we wanted to bring in, but we held over guys on Fangio. So, interesting to see how it all works out. They weren't his first choice. So, Campanile, listen, here's the deal with Campanile. I'm going to tell y'all something right now. I'm going to give you guys a nugget, all right? Here, and some people aren't going to like to hear it because they saw what they saw on Hard Knocks and blah, 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 blah. All right? Here's the deal. And I reported this on Patreon a few weeks ago. I knew Campanile wasn't getting this job. I said this a couple weeks ago. I said he had support in the locker room from coaches and players. But then when I started digging, the thing that I kept hearing and kept popping up was I heard from a few people. One person said it to me, and I was like, really? You think that? And then I went and did some inspection, and pretty much, yeah. I heard he's not a very good, I don't want to say he's not a very good. But I heard, as a teacher, there's more to be desired. And I think I've said this up here. I don't think I actually. But there's more to be desired, I've heard, from a teaching standpoint with Campanile. I'm not sitting here saying they blame Channing Tindall on him. I'm not sitting here and saying that because Duke Riley was never anything more than a special teamer and we had to lean on him that they're blaming it on him. But I did hear that as a teacher, there's some room left to be desired there from a coaching standpoint. Sure, he'll rah you up and make you want to run through a wall. But when it comes to the X's and O's and player development through teaching, I've heard I've heard And I've also heard that he was highlighted on Hard Knocks to try and get him a job somewhere else. So I don't think he fits. I don't think he fits the teaching and player development aspect that McDaniel wants. McDaniel wants nerds. Ryan Slowick, the outside linebacker, I think he would have got the job before Campanile. He's just not ready. But Slowick is going to be a name to watch. I think Slowick's going to be a better defensive coordinator. I've heard now, when I asked around, I heard Slowick's a freaking film buff. I heard he's a nerd when it comes to film study. I heard Slowick is a real bright mind. Real bright mind. And from what I was hearing, I think Slowick would have got... If you put a gun to their head, they would have picked Slowick over Campanile. I truly believe that. So, we'll dive a little bit more deep into that because I think there's some underlying stuff there. I'm going to ask the boys about that tomorrow, and we'll dive into it. But, from what I know, Slowick probably seems like he would have been a better fit for what they want in that coordinator. But they went, again, they went out of house. So, and Austin Clark seems just content to run the D-line right now. I don't know what's happening with Austin Clark. He's just like, yeah, I'm just going to chill, because I've heard he's a smart guy too. I've heard he's a real smart guy, Austin Clark. So, and that's a guy they're developing, right? So, anyways, let's, that's a good, it will be interesting. If we start seeing flashes from Tindall this season, I'm just saying, listen, everyone hated the Butch Berry move and everyone put too much stock into what the Denver media was saying. And then when you looked into the pass rush win rates and the block win rates, Berry wasn't the problem. The veterans just didn't like the new system. So I'm not going to knock this move. I think this is what we need here. I think we got some smart minds in here. I think Slowick is a smart guy. I've heard Austin Clark is a smart guy. Listen, I don't hate this Joe Barry move at all. I think our interior linebackers need upgrading. They're entering a season with questions. Look at the work Austin Clark has to do. Austin Clark has to get that. Wilkins is probably gone. He's got Seiler and Pilley on, and then he's got to find answers for Phillips and Chubb being out and potentially AVG gone. So, we need a good mind in here for the linebacking core. That second level needs to get better. David Long sticks out like a sore thumb as the most talented guy out there. Now, Jerome Baker was decent when he was out there. Listen, everyone knows I'm not the hugest fan of Jerome Baker, and it's not the person. It's not even so much the player anymore, because I've acknowledged he's gotten better every year. The issue was I didn't like it then, and I don't like it today. Was the contract? He got overpaid because he was overhyped, and I didn't like it. And I knew everyone would, 100 tackles, and then when you go look at how many of those tackles became 3 yards or more beyond the line of scrimmage, starts putting things in perspective. Can't work through traffic still, right? Is not the most instinctual guy you will ever see. Read and reaction, especially off RPOs and options, is not quite there yet. But he has gotten better every year with what he's been asked to do and what he's been tasked to do. The guy's a wide 9 off-ball blitzing linebacker, and we've asked him to do all these different things. So I do give him props for that. I just don't give him the amount of props that they're paying him. So if you can restructure Jerome Baker, that makes things a lot easier. If Jerome Baker's willing to accept what he is, and that's a $7 to $8 million player, all the power to him. Give him the money. But if he's going to be out here saying I'm 12, 13, 14, 15 million, brother, see behind me? See where the stadium is? Right in front of the stadium is a road. You better hit that pavement and drive out of Miami if that's the deal. That's what I'm going to say. But I digress. Joe Barry, we got a guy who's done great work with linebackers throughout his career, and it forced Campanile to go. And honestly, you guys aren't going to like to hear it who fell in love with him on Hard Knocks. Joe Barry is an upgrade over Campanile, and it's probably not even particularly close right now. So, I don't know what to say. It is what it is. Don't let it ever be what it ain't. That's all I know. Now, let's talk about this. I felt this point was way too glossed over. And the reason why I brought this up was because I was reading a PFF article. And, there was an interesting PFF article, and it talked about a tight end coming to Miami, a certain tight end, which there's other tight ends that are available that, I'm a little bit more interested in. But let's get into this first, all right? I will play this for you. So I want you guys to remember, take yourself back, all right? Do you remember the Dallas Cowboys game? Because, we were down 7-3, and I'm sure a lot of people weren't really thinking about this as much. But let's talk about this. I'll play the clip. Here's hoping I don't get demonetized.
Listen, I'm a big Mike McDaniel fan. I love his scheme. I told him when we saw him the other day, I said, listen, I love everything about what you do, your vibe, your whole. We got to get the tight ends going. And he said, well, that's the next step of the progression, right? Maybe that's year 3, but.
So there you go. Right there, Greg Olsen, former tight end, says what I've been saying all season, that seam threat is the next step in the next unlocking evolution. We're looking for a third receiver. Sure, you can find a slot receiver, and you should find a slot receiver. But that next step, I think, takes with that tight end. And, it's something I brought up all year. It's why I've been banging the table for if he's in striking distance, you move up for Brock Bowers. But, or Joe Alt or Olufashinu, or, even Talise Fuaga if he's like a couple picks ahead of you, but they're not going to be there. Anyways, I digress. I truly think this is the next evolution. And why I'm going to talk about this deeper, but why I'm saying that is you also had PFF come out with this article, and they had Austin Hooper as a fit to the Miami Dolphins. They said this is a buy low move for Miami to get a compliment to Durham Smythe, an in-house favorite who is a reliable tight end for an offense that leans heavily on 11 and 21 personnel. Hooper can sit down in the soft spots of zones and rack up some yards after the catch with all the room created by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And really, that last line is what I keep stressing to you guys, right? This is what I've been stressing. We need a guy who offers you something after the catch, because of the space that are created, especially underneath and through the middle of the field when you're sending these guys vertically. Now, there's better options than Austin Hooper. Like, if we're talking about just free agency, I don't even, I'll take Gerald Everett over him, right? I would take Noah Fant over him. I would take Hunter Henry over him. I will take Dalton Schultz over Austin Hooper. See, I don't think it's about finding someone who can complement Durham Smythe. I think it's someone who can, when we're in, right, 12 personnel, when we're running 2 tight end packages, maybe some 22. It's about someone. It goes back to what the Patriots had with Hernandez and Gronk. And this is why, no, we're not bringing Gesicki home. We need someone who can block. Now, I know, see, the thing is, Gronk could block and offer you something after the catch, while Hernandez could offer you a ton after the catch, right? But they both had the same thing. They could offer you something after the catch. We need a guy who can do both. That's just what it comes down to. I don't think Atlanta's trading Kyle Pitts, so I don't think you can call. I don't know. I see Finside is Darren Waller, good option, like a couple years ago. I don't know where he's at right now. Listen, this is why I was saying, now I know he didn't choose. Zach Ertz, man. You need, we need someone who can block and who can offer something after the catch. David Njoku, yeah. But I wanted Zach Ertz for this playoff run, right? I wanted Zach Ertz for this final 3-game stretch in the playoff run. Now, it wouldn't have mattered in the end, but I wanted him for that. Now we are into the free agency. Obviously, I would like to draft a guy. A guy that I like beyond Brock Bowers, and I've talked about, and I took in one of my mock drafts, is Jatavian Sanders. I like Jatavian Sanders. There's some decent talent in this tight end, in the tight end, in the tight end market in the draft. You got Brock Bowers, Jatavian Sanders, Jaheim Bell, I know people like, Cade Stover, Jared Wiley from TCU. There's some guys, right? And then again, like I said, in free agency, when you look in free agency, you got Noah Fant out there, Gerald Everett's out there as well. Dalton Schultz. I know Dalton Schultz is old, but look what he just did last year. Hunter Henry's out there, and once he gets out of New England, will Hunter Henry get back to the guy he would look like he was going to turn into in Los Angeles? Hunter Henry, I think, could be damn good in this offense. So there's draft options, there's free agent options, but I do think this is a position that needs to be upgraded. And I don't care how much Omar Kelly or anyone tells me they love Julian Hill. Stop. Julian Hill, never mind running a 40 in 4.2 seconds. He takes 4.2 seconds to start running the 40. What do you think about sending Wilkins to Atlanta for Algier and whatever picks you like? Everyone knows I was high on Tyler Algier coming out, and he kind of got the raw deal when they drafted Bijan. But him and Bijan have looked like a damn good 1-2 punch. Damn good 1-2 punch. He was a top 5. Remember, Tyler Algier was 3 or 4 for me coming out of that draft? I love Tyler Algier. Huge Tyler Algier fan. He would complement Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert so beautifully. Beautifully. I don't think they're going to break him and Bijan up. I don't think you got a shot at breaking those guys up, Drake London or Kyle Pitts right now in Atlanta. I don't think they're going to trade any of those, because they're going to try and get those guys a quarterback. So, I think people have glossed over this and not talked about this enough. Greg Olsen, I went, and shout out to the homie Anthony. We're doing a space on Friday on X. Make sure you tune into that. It's going to be like a lunchtime space. I know he had posted a couple weeks ago, and I said, hey, man, can you find me the clip where you know that from? And he dug it up for me, so I appreciate you. But not enough people are talking about that clip. Not enough people are talking about that clip. More people are talking about the wide receiver 3 than they are that clip. And Mike McDaniel told Greg Olsen directly, that's the next progression in this offense. And it's something I've been saying all year. So we will see how it goes. Listen, y'all already know where I am. Y'all already know where I am. Okay? You know what the deal is. Get me a tight end. Watch this blow up. Watch this blow up. Look at Shanahan, Kittle. Look at LaFleur. Drafted Tucker Kraft. My bad. Drafted Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave last year. Look at McVay with Higbee. You need the tight end, man. It's the next level for this offense. Believe me on that. Believe me. That's why I'm saying if Brock Bowers falls out of that top 10, bring, 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 what do you want? That's the guy, man. Brock Bowers in this offense, unstoppable. Un-effing stoppable. Been saying it all year, I feel like. But hey, listen. What did I take in one of my mocks that I showed you? I took Troy Fontenot 1, and then I took Jatavion Sanders in the 2nd. And then another one I took Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the 2nd. I took a linebacker and 1 on the tight end. Jatavion's good too, man. Jatavion is good. Don't sleep on Jatavion Sanders. If he's there in the 2nd and you've taken offensive line in the 1st round and there isn't an interior defensive lineman you like or a linebacker you're blown away with, Jatavion Brown. I see in the comments, I see it's already happening. Listen, I am not against, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not against Eric All. By the way, I see you in the comment. It's Eric with a K. I'm not against Eric All from Iowa. Now, everyone knows I love Luke Lachey. That was the guy I wanted. I'm not against Eric All, but that's if he's there in the 5th, I'm not taking him in the first 2 rounds. So, anyways, let's keep it rolling. I wanted to show this. Trent Dilfer. This is what he said regarding, you remember, the one who coached Tua in the Elite 11. This is what he said regarding it. He said, no one was on the Tua Tagovailoa bandwagon earlier than Trent Dilfer. 4 years before the Dolphins made Tua the 5th pick of the 2020 draft, Dilfer knew the lefty from Oahu had the goods. Tagovailoa attended Dilfer's Elite 11 passing academy as a high schooler, and he worked with Dilfer during the pre-draft process after a hip injury ended his college career. So none of Tua Tagovailoa's accomplishments as a pro have come as a surprise. I thought it was one of the premier talents we've ever had, Dilfer, now the head coach at University of Alabama, Birmingham, said to PFN at Super Bowl opening night on Monday. Train them to get ready for the draft. That's when I was really bullish on, and people thought I was crazy. But the kid he has it. That's a hard thing to explain, but he has a unique feel for the game. He has unique instincts. He's a great leader, and now it's starting to show as they surrounded him with a bunch of talent. Dilfer's instincts were right, so the Dolphins might do well to listen to him again about the future. Tagovailoa is entering a contract year, and both he and the Dolphins say they believe a long-term deal will get done. Dilfer's thoughts, you have to do it. They're so hard to find, right? Like, there's so many misses with quarterbacks. And once you find one that you feel you can finish the race with, then you go get them signed and committed to for long term. Tagovailoa has yet to finish the race. Despite a brilliant regular season, he and the Dolphins offense laid an egg in the wild card against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think any quarterback faces the deal where you get to know how to win those big games that people expect you to win, Dilfer said. Every quarterback goes through the doubting of that, and you just keep plugging away and getting better at little things every year and addressing things that got you in trouble in the games you lost. So there you go. I know people are talking about, that's kind of alluding to Tua, talking about the 4 things he's going to work on, the 4 things he's going to improve on. People want to talk about this. People want to talk about that. I'm not here to speculate. Do I have my own ideas? Sure. But I bring on Nick Hicks every offseason for our annual discussion and update regarding Tua. Why would I sit here and speculate when I can A, talk to Nick Hicks privately and find out what they are, or B, and B, bring Nick Hicks up here for all of you guys to hear it directly from his mouth. I don't got to speculate. All right? We saw the areas he struggled in last year, and we've seen every area people have identified, his team, his camp, the team that they've identified he struggled in, even observers, he's worked on and got better at every year. So, listen, Trent Dilfer, I agree with what he says there. They're so hard to find and there's so many misses. I've said this before. My stance on the fifth year is this. I wish we had another year of evaluation, 110%. If you're going to give him an extension, if he's looking to reset the market, nope, not happening. There's thresholds that I don't think, should he make more guaranteed money than Lamar Jackson this year? No, but Lamar Jackson's deal got done before Herbert, and Herbert got $218 million. So I'll tell you this. This is where I start running into the issue. Tua's done more and deserves more money in a contract more than Herbert did, but he doesn't deserve more money than Lamar, who's now won 2 MVPs. So that's where I fit. Wherever that falls, let the chips fall. But, if someone were to ask me if Herbert doesn't deserve making more than Lamar Jackson. Burrow makes sense. Burrow's been to 2 AFC championships. He's been to a Super Bowl. Herbert don't deserve more money than Lamar. I don't even think he deserves more money than Tua. What has Herbert done since winning Rookie of the Year? I know what Tua's done since then. What has Herbert done? How many winning seasons? He's gotten Anthony Lynn and Staley fired. He's got Pep Hamilton, one of the best quarterback minds, got released because of Anthony Lynn. He's on his 3rd staff. Now, if it don't work with Harbaugh, I'm going to tell you this. If it don't work in 3 years, 4 years with Harbaugh, you think Harbaugh's going to sit around and say, well, let's keep it going. Harbaugh going to send Herbert packing for his own guy. I don't think Herbert deserves more money than Lamar Jackson. I don't think he deserves more. Let's do it. Since Herbert's rookie year, when he won Pepsi Rookie of the Year, that matters. What, did you get free Pepsi for a year? All right? What has he done? I know Tua's been in the MVP conversation 2 years in a row. I know we have back-to-back playoff appearances 2 years in a row. I know we've never picked in the top 5, let alone the top 10 under Tua. Why? Tua's never had a losing season in Miami. Never. Whether he was working with guys like Lynn Bowden Jr. and Mike Gesicki and Malcolm Perry, or whether he was working with Tyreek and Jalen, never had a losing season. What does Herbert deserve? And anyone who says he deserves that money off of traits, there's a reason why I will say this to you. You don't know football, and no one should ever allow you around any front office. What? So let's put in a promotion at your work. Let's say you work at an office. So what? This guy, you got a guy who's been employee of the month a couple times in the last year, and you got a guy who can what? Xerox fast? Send emails a little faster? He deserves a promotion over the guy who's been in the running for employee of the month or employee of the year 2 years in a row? Who deserves a promotion? Stop. Don't sell me that trait narrative. Traits don't mean Jack Bo Diddley if it don't lead to wins and accolades. I'm sorry. That's just a fact. It actually makes it even worse. If you're this super uber talented, you got an arm like a Greek god, you're built like a Greek god, you can extend plays but you can't win shit, stop. And you've got as much dog in you as a puppy. I've never heard... Listen, I would have given Justin Herbert an extension based off the fact that I heard him on the sideline saying, I've never wished for a tie before in my whole life. You think Tua's ever said that? You think Joe Burrow's ever said that? You think Jordan Love's ever said that? No, they say, give us the ball, we're going to go beat the team. Now, they don't always win. They don't always go out there and beat them, especially Tua, 2-6 in big games last year. But at least they got the dog in them. After hearing a guy say, I've never wanted a tie so much in my life, take you back to the Atlanta game in Flores' last year with the Deshaun Watson rumors swirling. Tua Tagovailoa had a terrible first half. And then a third quarter looked like it was almost over. They even panned on him and he looked like a deer in headlights. Then the guy takes that fourth quarter over, leaves the field. Here's a 2-point lead, Brian. Go send your elite defense out there with under 3 minutes left. What happened? Brian Flores' not so elite play calling and defense showed up and we lost the game. And if they would have won that game, I'm not even talking about the loss to Urban Meyer. If they would have won that game against Atlanta, they would have been in the playoffs that year. And we'd have 3 straight playoff seasons under our belt right now. Huh? We shouldn't even have been at that Titans game. Between the Jacksonville and the Atlanta game, we shouldn't even have been win-get in against the Titans. It should have already been wrapped up. Much love to Reason who works harder than Samuel L. I'm sick and tired of these mother snakes in this community. All right? Take out the plane and put community. So, what up? Let's go. Man, just too easy. It's too easy, man. And I see people, Tua is improving in inches. Not miles. It's taking too long. Bro, go look at Peyton Manning's first 6 seasons. We just covered it on the show yesterday. Go look at Drew Brees' first 6 seasons. It took Drew Brees and Peyton Manning more than 5 years to win their first playoff game. Let's have a real conversation. Like I said yesterday, people in this fan base, because they got no patience, they would have ran Peyton Manning out of town. They wouldn't even have wanted him to finish his first contract through the most interceptions by a rookie in his first year. I've seen how y'all treated Tua. You would have wanted Peyton Manning gone after year 1. We wouldn't even have got to year 4 or year 5. And then on top of it, these people don't even know ball enough to even have these opinions. The toilet paper currently flushing through my sewage system that has my excrement on it, that excrement left more football knowledge on that piece of toilet paper than these people have in their bodies. That's real talk. And I'll say that to their face. I'll say it online. I don't care. All right. J.J. Watt's prediction for new Dolphins defensive coordinator and Dolphins injury news. What are the Dolphins getting in Anthony Weaver, their new defensive coordinator, future Hall of Famer J.J. Watt? The most accomplished player on the one defense that Weaver has coordinated was effusive in his comments on Tuesday. You're getting a great man, a truly great man, Watt said during a CBS Super Bowl Zoom session. I love Weave. We're extremely close. I'm very excited to see him get an opportunity to be a DC. And I have no doubts one day he'll be a head coach. Yeah, it might not be long if this defense pops. That 2020 Houston defense was 27th in points permitted and struggled to stop run, forcing Weaver to move from his 3-4 base to the 4-3 defense a few weeks into the season. But that unit had injuries and talent issues beyond Watt, Zach Cunningham, and a few other players. After that 2020 season, Weaver joined the Baltimore Ravens as defensive line coach, a position he held the past 3 seasons before the Dolphins hired him on Saturday night to succeed Fangio. And here's an update for Good. According to the source, the injury sustained to Dolphins edge rusher Cameron Good was a torn patellar tendon. The typical recovery time for that injury is 9 months. He could be out until October, but he's been recovering well so far, and there's hope he could be back in August or September. Oh, Tanner Connor. The Dolphins need to add a seam threat at tight end this offseason. Tanner Connor hopes he can be that player. Connor fell behind Julian Hill. Listen. I don't know, Tanner. I've seen you couldn't catch 5-yard passes from Skylar Thompson. So Connor fell behind rookie Julian Hill and Dolphins tight end developmental pipeline, but Connor should get another offseason to prove he's ready to contribute. He played only 25 snaps as a member of the 53-man roster in 2022 and only 20 snaps as a member of the practice squad this past season. I was trying to do the best I could to make plays for our defense and be a good scout team representative. I was elevated 3 times, did the best I could in the game. And what areas tight end coach John Embry encouraged him to improve? Knowledge of the position, said Connor. It's only my 2nd year playing tight end. Need to continue to learn how to block. In the passing game, I feel pretty good. I feel comfortable in the offense. I noticed over the past few years that Connor is often studying his iPad at his locker as much or more than any other player during media access in the locker room. I've done a lot of studying, he said. Just being confident in myself, understanding the intricacies of the run game will be important to crack the 23. See, I can't get down on this. Again, a project. Julian Hill feels like a project, right? Over 410 of you in the room smash that like button. Or what are we doing here? Go get you got a solid number 2 in Smythe. Go find the number 1, whether it's through the draft or whether it's through free agency. Go find the number 1. Someone said earlier to compliment him. Sure. If you want to compliment Smythe as a number 2 with a number 1 guy, then yes, compliment him that way. You need to find the yin to his yang. And I listen, my whole thing is, why are we playing around with this, right? I'm tired of these, if Brock Bowers is in striking distance, go get him. If Jatavian Sanders on the board, go get him. Y'all remember how much I loved Sam Laporta last year? Each and every one of you who follow me through draft season, y'all remember Sam Laporta was on my annual man crush list. Y'all remember me gushing over that kid. Look at Sam Laporta now. Imagine if we had Sam Laporta in this offense. So, go get that weapon. Go get someone who can block, who can threaten the seam and offer you something after the catch. Watch how dynamic this offense. Look at, this is why I kept stressing. Keep using Smythe in those last couple weeks. Because every time we threatened the seams with Smythe, what would happen? The linebackers and safeties would look like we just caught them. They look like they don't know what the hell hit them. They didn't know what the hell hit them. And you can see it on tape. Instead of utilizing it and game planning around that, it was okay. We can create some space with our other guys for this. That was the key to creating space with Tyreek when Waddle was out. You weren't going to have another guy fill the boundary role like Waddle could. That was going to be your key. Start threatening the seams. Start getting them to think of that second threat underneath, middle of the field, through the seams. Okay, now they got to be a little bit more aware of that, and that could open up other guys now. Instead of trying to use Tyreek to open up everyone, you could have used Tyreek and the tight end to open up other guys, and you could use the tight end to open up Tyreek, and Tyreek to open up the tight end, vice versa. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. So, listen. Here's where I'm at with it. Get the tight end and threaten the seam. It's that simple. And then Knight says, gotta love Poupart. Asked 32 GMs, Herbert or Tua. Asked those 32 GMs, Brees or Vic. They would pick Vic. Such a dumb argument. Yeah, that's a dumb argument. That's a dumb argument. Anyways, it all depends on what you want to do. Like, I had a conversation yesterday about someone started to say, Mike Daniel lifting from Mike Martz, and other than 7-step drops and the love of timing, there's a lot of middle of the field, timing throws, deep throws. There's a lot of stuff that McDaniel does that Shanahan did as well. So I wouldn't sit here and say it's Mike Martz, but Mike Martz would pick Drew Brees over Vic for what he wanted in his offense if you want to go all the way back then. So, guys, I'll be live tomorrow with Richmond with ball games. Smash the like button. We are just over 800 away from 15,000. I'll do a giveaway, and then I'll be live on Thursday with Neil. Appreciate all y'all for coming through. As always, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day, until Margaritaville sends a cease and desist.